Hello everyone, and welcome back to the lecture series describing synthetic and natural macromolecules. We have already examined lipids and proteins, and now it is time to take a look at carbohydrates. Sugar is one of the oldest and best documented commodities. The crystallinity of sucrose, lactose, and fructose, as well as their sweet flavor, has made them popular for over 2 millennia. Sugar belongs to the carbohydrate food group, and its main natural sources are sugarcane and sugar beets, where it can account for up to 20% of the plant's dry weight. Understanding the chemistry of sugars and their structure requires some basic knowledge of the chemistry of the carbonyl group, from which aldehydes and ketones are derived. Therefore, before moving forward in this lecture, it might be useful to review the lecture covering the key properties of the most common functional groups in organic molecules. Glucose and other simple sugars, ranging from 3 carbon trioses to 7 carbon heptoses, are called monosaccharides and consist of carbon chains with attached hydroxyl and carbonyl groups. Structures of some open-chain monosaccharides are shown here. In aqueous solution, a hydroxyl group and a carbonyl group within the same monosaccharide react to form a cyclic hemiacetal, resulting in either a 5 or 6-membered ring. For example, glucose undergoes an intramolecular addition reaction between the aldehyde group at carbon 1 and the hydroxyl group at carbon 5, forming a 6-membered ring, as shown here. Note that this is a reversible reaction. Just like glucose in solution, other sugars also prefer to exist in their cyclic hemiacetal form. However, for some sugars, the most stable conformation is the 5-membered furanose form, as is the case for fructose, shown here. When 2 monosaccharides undergo a dehydration condensation reaction, they form a disaccharide, which is essentially an acetal. For example, table sugar, also known as sucrose, is a disaccharide composed of glucose and fructose. Similarly, milk sugar, known as lactose, is a disaccharide composed of glucose and galactose. In addition to their roles as individual molecules in energy metabolism, monosaccharides serve as the monomer units of polysaccharides. The 3 major natural polysaccharides are cellulose, starch, and glycogen, which are all polyacetals. Although they are composed entirely of glucose units, they differ in the ring positions of their linkages, the orientation of certain bonds, and the extent of cross-linking. Cellulose is the most abundant organic compound on Earth. More than 50% of the carbon in plants is found in the cellulose of stems and leaves, and wood is largely composed of cellulose. Cellulose consists of long chains of glucose. The great strength of wood is largely due to the countless hydrogen bonds between cellulose chains, which result from the specific way the monomers are linked from carbon 1 in one unit to carbon 4 in the next. Humans lack the enzymes necessary to break this linkage, so we cannot digest cellulose. However, microorganisms in the digestive tracts of certain animals, such as cows, sheep, and termites, can do that. Starch is not a pure substance. It is a mixture of polysaccharides, primarily composed of glucose, and serves as an energy store in plants. When a plant needs energy, some starch is broken down for the hydrolysis of bonds between glucose units, releasing glucose that is then oxidized through a multi-step metabolic pathway. Starch occurs in plant cells as insoluble granules of amylose, a helical molecule composed of several thousand glucose units, and amylopectin, a highly branched, bush-like molecule containing up to 1 million glucose units. In starch, most of the glucose units are linked by an acetal bond between carbon 1 and carbon 4, similar to cellulose. However, The slightly different orientation of hydroxyl groups in starch limits the extent of hydrogen bonding, allowing our digestive enzymes to break it down into monomers, which we metabolize for energy. Just as starch serves as an energy storage molecule in plants, glycogen functions as the energy storage molecule in animals. It occurs in liver and muscle cells as large, insoluble granules composed of polymer molecules containing from several thousand to more than 500,000 glucose units. In glycogen, these units are linked by acetal bonds between carbon-1 and carbon-4, similar to starch. The main difference is that glycogen is more highly branched than starch. To sum up, in this lecture, you have learned about sugars and polysaccharides. You have seen that in water, most sugars prefer to exist in their cyclic hemiacetal form. Sugars can also undergo dehydration condensation reactions to form tri- and polysaccharides, which are, in essence, acetals. We briefly discussed polysaccharides such as cellulose, starch, and glycogen, which play essential structural or energy storage roles in living systems. In the following lecture, you'll be introduced to the structure and characteristics of nucleotides and nucleic acids. Thank you for your attention.